Where are you judging somebody for being, let's say, an alcoholic, but you're a closet porn user that your wife doesn't know about? Really, you're going to judge that guy, but you can't even own your shit? Where are you out of alignment? Someone who was very close to me said to me years ago that your physical body is an outward manifestation of what's going on in the inside. Now, at the time, I'm 350 pounds. I took that so personal, but she was right. When I say that most people lack self-worth or self-love, it's not like it's a conscious thing that people are sitting around thinking about. It's an unconscious, rooted, deep program that's inside, that's been reinforced mostly unconsciously. If there is a limiting belief or there is an embedded belief that you don't feel worthy of it or you're not deserving of it, the reality is it will hold you back. Welcome to the Burn Up Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Nugent. I want you to sit with a question here at the very beginning. What if by simply changing your story or your perspective or your belief around something in your life that's not going the way you want it to go or things aren't happening, by simply changing the story or the narrative to that could literally instantly change everything? I want you to sit with that as we talk through this, because the reality is if you want something in your life, more often than not, there is a story, there is a belief, there is something behind it that is preventing you from actually being able to accomplish it or lean into it or have whatever you want to have. And I've had multiple examples in my life here recently with people that I work with one of my sons, and even me personally. And so I'm going to share some personal examples and things for you to think about, but I want you to hold that one question. Could I literally just change the story, the perspective of just this one thing? And could it really change everything? Could it be that easy? So one of the things that I have found with every single one of the men that I work with, that no matter where they are in their particular life, if there's something in their life that is not going the way they want to, whether it's in their business, whether it's in their marriage, whether it's in their physical health, there is an element, there many times much larger than they even realize, but there is an element of self-worth or self-love attached to it. I had one client, for example, he's making incredibly great money, was having some strife in his relationship, wasn't where he thought it should be or wanted it to be. And as we dug deeper and deeper, there was a part of him that didn't feel worthy of love. I know people that have incredible marriages at different parts of their life, but then, they hit ceilings in their business or can't seem to break through or scared to make the leap or whatever happens to be. And there's an element of worth associated with that. They do not feel worthy of success. And I truly believe that if you're hitting ceilings in your life, and I talk about this all the time, if there is a limiting belief or there is an embedded belief that you don't feel worthy of it or you're not deserving of it, the reality is it will hold you back. So for example, take love. So I remember years ago when I first went to therapy, I was married at the time, and we were going back and forth, and my therapist asked me a question. She said, "Adam, do you feel worthy of love?" And I sat there silent. No one had ever asked me that. Now I'm in my late 30s, 38, 39 years old, when I was posed this question that I had never heard before in my entire life. And I sat there speechless. There's been a few times in my life where I literally had nothing to say or words wouldn't come out. And there was that moment that I couldn't even answer the question. Well, the truth was I didn't. And I can't even remember if I actually said, no, I don't. But the reality is the fact that I couldn't even answer that and say, oh, hell yeah, I feel worthy of love, was really one of the beginning catalysts for me to go down the path that I've gone through in self-discovery and truly learning to love myself and know that I am worthy of anything and everything I want, that you cannot outsource your worth, that you cannot, get your worth from other people. I talk about this all the time. For those of you that follow me on social, I will post constantly about worth. Worth should never be in question. Now, many times the word worth comes up in religious settings or religious upbringings. I was raised Mormon, and in Mormonism, in the culture and the theology of that is you have to, in order to be considered worthy in the name of God, you have to, quote unquote, check boxes. You've got to be able to do this, and this, or not do these certain things. And as long as you adhere to these rules, if you will, you are then considered worthy. If not, then you have to repent or you have to make amends or whatever happens to be to get back into alignment to be considered worthy in the eyes of God. And I will tell you right now, that is complete bullshit. And not just with Mormonism, I would say with any particular religion. Worth should never be in question. Ever. As men and women of God, whatever you believe that is, we inherently have worth. It should never be in question. There's no asterisk. There's no fine print. There's no, hey, as long as I do A, B, C, D, and E, then I'll be considered worthy. Almost like we have to prove it to ourselves. Many times, especially for men, we as men, much of our identity is rooted in how much money we make, the success we have, how people see us. And when you're constantly chasing worth, when you're trying to outsource it, it will never be enough. You cannot outsource worth. It is an internal job. And the truth of the matter is, it's a decision. Now, I can tell you right now that I truly believe it's a core conviction of mine that worth should never be in question. And maybe you're hearing that. It's like, that makes sense. Or yeah, of course. But do you know that? Like truly, truly know that? Because I truly believe most people, the majority of people, do not feel worthy. They lack self-worth or self-love. And so one of the, so as I went down this road of self-worth and self-discovery, doing all sorts of different things from therapy to coaching to plant medicine, years and years of all of this, learning to love myself, having these incredible experiences to feel love, like I'd never felt before. And then fast forward, ended up losing my investment business. I lost everything, people, like everything that my identity and worth was tied to outside of me, was gone. So the reality is like, as I was, whatever worth I was building up or recognizing inside of me went away. And literally, I would say maybe 3 years ago, I was actually working with a coach, and, she presented this idea of this particular book, and it was really all written around the premise of this. And it was a coach that does very, very well about how, what's the story you're telling yourself? And, if you've ever had those moments where you just like, you hear something or see something, and it was almost like God said, hey, you need to look at this book. Like, you need to take this. And so I took it and ran, and I listened to this thing. I read this thing over and over. I mean, I don't know how many times, because it just resonated with me. So as I sat there, this is back in 2003, having lost everything in my eyes that mattered. Relationship was gone. My girlfriend, we had broken up after years together. I lost my business. I lost my dad. I mean, everything, people, everything in my life literally was gone that I had put real tremendous value on. And so I sat there, and you talk about not having self-worth. But as I kind of leaned into this, I started to think from a different perspective. I'm like, well, wait a minute. I'm reading this book. I'm hearing and seeing things that is like, could it be just that simple that I could just literally change the story and just say, you know what? I am worthy. So to me, I'm like, it's too easy. Nah, it's too easy. You can't do that. There's just no way that it could be that easy. That literally just me deciding, just making a decision that, yes, I am worthy, that all of a sudden it would shift. So I resisted it for a minute, kind of half-assed it a little bit, but then I decided to go all in on it. So I started to tell myself over and over and over, like, I'm worthy and deserving of anything and everything I want. I had this chant, this mantra that I would tell myself over and over and over. I wrote it down. I would repeat it. I would listen to my voice as I was this. And then all of a sudden, what happened literally in many ways, what felt like overnight, is all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute. One day I realized, like, I'm not questioning my worth anymore. I actually know I'm worthy. And even though I didn't have the money, the people, the relationships, whatever, at the end of the day, it's like, no, I'm actually worthy. So what changed? What shifted? My question I posed at the beginning, could it really be that easy? And I'm here to tell you, in concept, in principle, the formula, if you will, is actually that easy. We're the authors of our life. And my feelings of lack of self-love or self-worth, frankly, is generational. My core childhood wound, let me preface it with this. Every single one of us carries core childhood wounds. Like, I don't care if you say you don't, you do. If you don't think you do, you're lying to yourself. We just do. And my core childhood wound was that I'm not enough, right? Linked to self-worth. Believe it or not, my father, his core childhood wound was that he was not enough. My grandfather's core childhood wound is that he was not enough. And a lot of people carry that limiting belief. And it's generational. It comes into us. It's reinforced by how we're raised, how our parents treat us, how, society, all the different things. It's like this embedded belief, this embedded program, if you will. And I want you to, and I use the word program intentionally. So like any computer program, imagine like whatever software program you have, from time to time, whether it be Microsoft or Apple, there are software updates, right? Where they come in and you get an upgrade, if you will. You get an upgrade. Well, many times we have this program that's running inside of our head, and it's just the default. So for, close to 40 plus years, like, I had this embedded belief, and most of these things really are unconscious. It's not like I was ever walking around thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm not worthy. I didn't even recognize it. I didn't even realize until the question was posed to me. And so when I say that most people lack self-worth or self-love, it's not like it's a conscious thing that people are sitting around thinking about. It's an unconscious, rooted, deep program that's inside that has been there, that's been reinforced mostly unconsciously. We don't realize we're, reinforcing it, but the reality is we are. But like any other program, we can actually override it. I say this all the time, is we're the authors of our life. So if I'm the author of my life, and if I have this story or this belief, the example I'm using, today is worthiness, or I'm not, self-worth, could I change the story? Could it be just that simple? So when I say story, think of it like this. You've got a story or you've got a belief, and what happens when we have a thought, a story, a belief, what follows? It's a feeling, right? Either positive or negative. And based off those feelings will then determine what action we take or don't take. And so it's all connected. And so what I have found is in order to really overcome this, we have to get to the root of the issue. So for example, if I don't feel worthy of love and I'm having strife in my marriage and my wife decides to actually show up and she's giving me everything I want, right? The sex, connection, champion me, like she is on fire. She's doing anything and everything that I ever wanted. But if I have this core internal belief, this unconscious belief that I'm not worthy of love, I will reject it. I will push it away unconsciously. If you have this belief that you're not worthy of success or worthy of money or whatever it happens to be, no matter how many systems you install, no matter how many coaches, no matter how many clients, you will hit a ceiling if you do not feel worthy of it. It's like this energetic block that you cannot, that will prevent you from hitting certain ceilings or certain thresholds or hitting certain limits until you're able to overwrite that. In business, I say like your ability to accept the amount of truth with yourself is a direct correlation with the amount of success or the amount of money you have. And so it's just a story. So can we rewrite it? Can the story be rewritten? And in order to rewrite a story, it requires awareness. So again, I'm late 30s, 40, when I finally get that question posed, I had no idea. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, I'm aware that I don't feel worthy, right? So we can't change things if we're not aware of it. If we don't have awareness, because, many times we move through the world, we have a default way we respond to things, whatever it happens to be, it's all unconscious. And then all of a sudden, once we're aware of it and we recognize our patterns, that's when change can occur. If you're not aware of the stories or the beliefs, like you can't be expected to change. And so one of the key things is awareness. So when I said, is it possible to change the story around something? Could it be that simple? So I would challenge you, what area of your life today do you feel like isn't going the way you want to, where there's a tremendous amount of frustration or anger or resentment? That's the place to start. And then literally write out your story behind it. So take divorce, for example. I'm divorced, been divorced for about, 8 or 9 years. And my ex-wife and I have a great relationship, great friends. It took a minute to get there. But why can two people that, let's say, that have been divorced, where she and I can co-parent really well, we're good friends, we talk all the time, like we have a great relationship, a great co-parent relationship, where you have other couples that have been divorced for 20 years, 30 years or more that can't even be in the same room with one another. Why is that? What's the difference? Because there's a story attached to it. And that story, believe it or not, when we have a particular story, that story also feeds our identity as far as how we see ourselves. So take divorce, as common as divorce, right? Regardless of what happened, husband and wife get divorced. Let's say the husband filed, let's go out there, that's not uncommon, but more of an extreme example. Let's say the husband cheats on his wife, right? She finds out, they get divorced, this whole thing. He's this asshole, he's this guy, whatever the details are, right? So she carries this story attached to him, and this anger and this frustration, and she has this story attached to him, and she cannot necessarily let it go. And again, I'm not dismissing the pain of what something like that would feel like, but let's assume right now we're 10 years post-divorce and still talks about him, still sees him a certain way, tries to get the kids to go against him, has all of these particular stories, right? The way she sees him, cannot let it go. Cannot let it go. So why does someone stay in that anger? Now, I had actually literally a couple days ago, my coach, we were talking about victims, many of us have been victimized, but it's a choice to remain a victim. Like, I love that distinction. So yes, she was victimized because of what happened, but yet she's choosing this consciously or unconsciously to remain in that role because it's supported her identity. It's supported her identity. So what if one day she's like, decides like, this isn't working for me as much as I hate this man and all the pain, it's like, it's just creating pain in her head. What if one day she decides she needs to change the story around it? And then one day, what if she realized, you know what? And she's actually able to sit with it and not dismissing what he did, but understanding the role that she played in the marriage. What did she do? What did she show up? And then having to sit with that and having to recognize the pain or that she contributed to the divorce. When someone gets into that, when they've been in that, if you will, victim mode for a really long period of time, it's not just rewriting the story, it's recognizing that their identity has been supported by this narrative. And all of a sudden, not only to rewrite the story or change the narrative, now it's actually striking the identity. This happens with religion all the time. When somebody's raised in a particular religion or particular belief, and decades later, all of a sudden it doesn't resonate, or they find out information or something happens, it's not just the recognition or acknowledgement of something that doesn't resonate with them. It's the fracturing, in many cases, the crumbling of the identity that was created attached to that particular story or a belief. And so to rewrite stories, to change narratives, it's the formula, frankly, as I said at the beginning, it's actually simple, but the effects of actually leaning into that and being able to sit with the pain, being able to rewrite the story and not have it fracture your identity is where the work is. It's challenging. It's extremely challenging. I want to share an example of happening literally this week. I had a friend of mine who's, he's in phenomenal shape. He's not as good a shape as he used to be. And his wife, who's in phenomenal shape as well, had mentioned to him that she didn't feel as he was attractive with the weight that he put on. Well, he took immediate offense to that, extreme offense to that. Actually even messaged me and said, hey, is it okay that she said this? And, I thought of my own weight loss journeys and experiences I've had in marriage and dating. I used to be 350 pounds. And so I know what that feels like. And so there's some compassion as far as what he felt like. But his question was this: is it okay that she said that? So then I responded back. I'm like, I want to answer your question. 100% it's okay. She's entitled to how she feels. She's entitled to look at you and say, hey, I don't think you're as attractive as you once were, or I like you, in better shape than not. That's her prerogative. It's her desire. It's her preference. But he went down a rabbit hole. He got upset with me, came after me. I disagree with you. Went into this whole thing, and I'm like, I messaged back. I'm like, listen, you asked for my opinion. I gave it. Do with it what you will. A couple of days later, he messaged me back. He's like, I've been sitting and thinking about what you said. That, there's probably, I probably have some ownership in this. I took offense to this. Because one of my beliefs is if we get offended, there is, by anything that anybody says, there is something that they said that we're connecting with. There is something there. Otherwise, we don't get offended. And who's going to trigger us and who's going to offend us more than anyone? It's the people closest to us. It's our husbands and wives. It's our kids. It's family, brothers, sisters, parents, best friends. That's who's going to trigger us the most. That's where we're going to quote unquote get offended. But if we get offended, there is something that we're connecting with. To further illustrate this, because I think this is really important, I'm in phenomenal shape today. I know that. If someone were to call me fat, I don't care who it is, it would go in one ear and out the other. Now, if I was 10 pounds heavier and somebody called me fat, I know I'm not fat. Even 10 pounds heavier, I wouldn't be fat, but I might not be feeling as in shape as I am right now. So it might sting a little bit. I might be like, maybe. When I weighed 350 pounds, if anyone ever even talked about weight or even brought up fitness, I'm like, I made the assumption they're thinking about me. I was so insecure. I would be like, oh, why are they saying this, saying that? I made it all about me. Why? Because I was super insecure about it. I was taking it personal. And I was offended by just people making random comments. Why are they talking about this with me in here and all, whatever it is, lots of different stories, And so So there was whatever his wife said to him, back to the story, whatever his wife said to him, like there was, and I told him, so I'm like, you're connecting with something there. Well, we got on the phone actually here just yesterday, started talking through it, and then realized that like, it wasn't even that. There were some other stories or beliefs that he had just in their own marriage. And it went from like being offended that she said that he wasn't as physically attractive as he was before, that all of a sudden he felt like he's not doing enough and that she didn't appreciate him at all. And I connect with that because that's how I felt in my marriage. And was some of that accurate? For sure. Did she play a role in it? For sure. But a lot of it was my own insecurities and how I saw myself. And again, the stories that I'm telling myself, the stories. And literally, we can rewrite them. So one of the things that I consciously do today personally is when I'm in my head and I am frustrated about something, it's an opportunity. That's a signal to me that it's like, hey, you know what? There's something here that's not working for me. I don't want to feel like this, whatever it happens to be. Now, if it's something that's out of my control, it's which again, most of the things that we worry about are out of our control. I've learned really quickly to just learn to like, you know what? This hurts, but I'm accepting what is because I cannot do anything about it. But if I find myself, about something that somebody did in the past or something that happens and I'm getting in my head over and over and over, I'm creating chaos. I'm creating pain, frustration, anxiety, depression, whatever the feeling is. That's an opportunity to reframe the story. And what I have found through a lot of intentional practice is like when I reframe the story, I'm able to sit and like, you know what? I'm going to rewrite this. I'm going to tell something different, and being okay being wrong. Again, remember I mentioned that a lot of times in changing the story, it hits our identity. So what does that mean that if you say something or you believe something and it's a lie? It's a full-blown lie. What does that say about you? Well, I'll tell you what it says. You're human. You have a belief that's not accurate. My parents always used to say growing up, it's like you are what you think you are. There's actually some truth to that. So if you feel like you're a piece of shit and you're worthless and you've told yourself that and you show up that way, guess what? You're gonna find validation to support that belief. It's the way the brain works. It wants to connect the dots. You'll find what you're searching for. But that story is just a story. And if the story's not serving you, you can rewrite it. You can frame it. But a lot of people, especially men, when they're quote unquote wrong, or there's something that's not right, and all of a sudden they're like, shit, that wasn't accurate, or I'm sorry, I didn't mean that, or gosh, I was completely off on this. Many times sitting with the pain of that hits the identity. And the truth of the matter is, like, for me today, it's like, I put my foot in my mouth, I fuck up all the time, and I'm like, it still stings, but I don't sit in it. I don't carry shame attached to it. So it's okay to feel guilty. It's okay to feel that. Guilt's actually a healthy emotion, but shame, if I'm carrying shame and I'm beating myself and it's hitting my identity, that is a sign that you've got work to do. You've got some self-love, self-worth work to do for any shame that we carry. And so it hits the identity. It hits our identity. Take today in the world politics, right? I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. I think we can all agree with our president, Trump, today. What comes out of his mouth is gibberish. It's bullshit. His words and actions aren't aligned. Constant stories, lies. Trolling the world. What the hell's going on? It's wild. So you take MAGA, right? His movement. The MAGA movement, make America great again, make America great again. I think we can all agree that a lot of what's going on today is not making America great again. It's the complete opposite. A lot of the promises that were made have not been fulfilled. Take it for what it's worth. Those are facts. I'm not making this shit up. This isn't my opinion. These are just rooted in facts. So what's happened in in the first year of his presidency, especially now with what's going on in Iran? People are pissed. All of a sudden, people are like, wait a minute, here's the man that promised no more wars, all these different things, and all of a sudden we're going to war. We're doing everything the complete opposite. And what's been fascinating to watch is you've had these people that have been so like MAGA or nothing else. Trump can do no wrong. Crazy like beliefs around certain things, and it's like, nope, he's the man. There's people that think he's the savior. It's crazy. But what's happening is like all of a sudden people, big names, big Republican names are coming out on X, on social. It's like, you know what? I voted for this man 3 times. I've seen all this stuff. I'm done. I can't take it anymore. Like, I can't deny what I'm actually seeing. And many of these people are struggling with that because their identity is rooted in being a Republican or being a Democrat or being a Mormon or being a Jehovah's Witness or a Catholic, right? I live in Utah, Mormonism. Like, there are people in the church, leaders in the church, that have done some fucked up things. It's the truth. It's the reality is. But if anyone talks about any of this stuff, people get so offended. They're lying. There's hardcore evidence in courts and all different things that are out there. But yet, if it gets brought up, an active Mormon or LDS, member of the church takes it personal, like it's a hit against them. It has nothing to do with them. Both things, you can believe in a particular religious belief, and whatever person that's in charge or a leader or whatever can also be out of alignment, might not be in alignment with whatever teachings. Same thing with Donald Trump. But it's fascinating how hard it is for people to change their story or to reframe, their perspective of stuff. And again, Trump's a perfect example because he's so far out there, all the bullshit that he's doing. But the identity of like, I'm MAGA, what does that even mean? And now people are like, I'm MAGA, but like not Trump. Trump's not MAGA. I mean, it's like identity, right? How you see yourself matters. And when you can get to a place that, and again, if you get to a place you don't give a shit what anybody thinks about anything, that you're borderline narcissist. I truly believe that. I had a coach years ago tell me, he's like, listen, it's not that you don't want to care what other people think, because if you get into that stage, you're not even willing to hear feedback, especially from people that are close to you that really have your best interest at heart. But it's to get into a place that like, yes, I still care what other people think. Maybe not everybody, but people close to me, but not more than what I think about myself. See the difference? It's very different, completely different energy. So how you see yourself is rooted in a story, your identity, what's behind that, beliefs, both positive and negative. I've shared a lot of times on this podcast, my battles with addiction in the past, and I've had a lot of people that help people through addiction recovery. And one of the common themes are that some of these guys that work with these guys that are like in, recovery, or is so much of addiction is rooted in avoidance, and underneath it is they don't feel worthy. They feel like a piece of shit. They don't feel like they're enough. I spoke to a local group here, Wasatch Recovery here, 50, 60 people here a few weeks ago. And I looked at them, I said, listen, you guys are brave. Like, I think you're heroes of mine. Yes, you're in recovery and you might have all these judgments and people pointing your finger, this or that, but you're actually here. You have humbled yourself enough to come in here and seek help, where the majority of people out there are just addicts with other things. They're just hiding it. But here you are. This is brave. But yet society will point a finger at them. But the truth is they're warriors. They are willing to admit, hey, you know what? Something's off and I need help. I need help. Identity and stories. So simply by changing the story can help change different thoughts. The thoughts, if you will, or the emotions, the story or the thought then leads to the emotions. So if you want to live more of a conscious life where you're actually choosing what you're doing, how you're moving through the world, because the reality is a lot of what we do in life is completely unconsciously driven. The way to recognize that is try doing everything one day. If you're right-handed, try doing everything one day with your left hand intentionally. I'm going to brush my teeth, whatever you're going to do, just switch hands up and see how difficult it is. Or how you drive to work. How many times have you, driven to work and all of a sudden you realize you were spaced out for 30 minutes or 15, 20 minutes, whatever. How did I even get here? Right? Because you've taken that drive every day for 15 years. It's like you can do it in your sleep. And so the unconscious rules. And so if you want to live more of a conscious life, a conscious living life, you've got to have awareness around it. And so when you recognize that you have certain stories that aren't working or serving you, because at the end of the day, I think we all want peace, happiness, joy. Well, if we have a story that's affecting that, right, then our emotions are dictated based off that thought, and then the action will precede that. And so we have to reverse engineer into that. So let's rewrite the story. Let's tell something. And again, this simple example, and it's simple, but it's actually at the core of all of it, is like worthiness. Am I worthy of this? And the truth is, like, I know I'm worthy and deserving of anything and everything I want, but to have the money, the body, the relationship, I have to earn that. I actually have to put effort into it. It's not just going to be handed to me on a silver platter. So just because you're worthy of something doesn't mean all of a sudden you're entitled to whatever, right? guys that have made millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, billions of dollars, right? It's like those guys, they put the work in. They've earned that. So there still needs to be effort to do that. But why take a guy like Elon Musk, regardless of what you feel about him, I mean, what he's been able to build and continues to build is pretty incredible. Well, he makes a decision, you know what? We're going to go to Mars. I want to go to Mars. Where you got another guy that literally is sitting there just so freaked out of his mind. Let's say he's a door-to-door salesman. He's like, I got to go knock 20 doors. Look at the difference. Yeah, we're going to Mars. Boom, let's go. Versus, shit, I don't know if I can take rejection at the front door. What's the difference between the two? It's a story. And so you've got to be able to overwrite your story. Fear is a story. There's something beneath it. So you can rewrite that, create a mantra. You can do stuff. And then when you push through the resistance, then you get to stack evidence, and that's where confidence is for. It's like, and then all of a sudden we look back, it's like, holy shit, that wasn't as scary as I thought it was, or that was bullshit, or that wasn't true. But to be able to do that, you've got to be willing to be wrong. You've got to be willing to pivot. You've got to be willing to change. And when you have deep-rooted programs or beliefs that go back years, decades, or in my case, almost 40 years, like that doesn't change overnight. Literally this morning, and I got his permission to share this, my 18-year-old son, Kingston. I love this kid so much. Well, he's got brothers that are very successful. He's in college. He's playing rugby. He's doing things. He's got all these grandiose ideas and ways where he wants to take his life, but he feels like he's falling so short of it. So he's really hard on himself. He gets into his head a lot. And then he beats himself up, and then he gets stuck. But he's had this new level of awareness at 18 years old. He's like, Dad, I'm recognizing that I lack some self-love. Like I don't feel worthy of this, that I'm not enough. So as a dad, that just hits my heart so hard because like I know that feeling and I don't want my son to feel that. So there's that side of deep compassion and empathy. Like I just want to take that from him, but I can't. No matter what I say, I can't. So on one side of it, it hurts. He's sharing this like tears in my eyes, On the other side of it is euphoria, is excitement. Why? Because he's aware of it. At 18 years old, an 18-year-old recognizes that, can actually verbalize it and put words to it. And I was with him this morning and I said, you have this gift that's been given to you. And I know it's uncomfortable and you feel like, what the hell am I going to do with this? What do I need to do? But the truth is it's a gift because you have awareness around that. And I'm like, where you are right now, it took me another 22 years to get that. You're figuring this out at 18. So now that he has this gift, this awareness, it doesn't feel like a gift. And as he and I work together, it's like, we're going to rewrite your story around that. We're going to change how you see that because it's just a story and it's a lie. And he's recognizing how his identity with his brothers and his family, he's seen all of this. And the reality is like, I coached my sons and I've been coaching with them for 6 months. We've been talking about this stuff for 6 months. It just finally started to click. He finally recognized it and saw it for himself versus, hey, Dad's just saying this. Totally different energy. So if you want change, right? If you want to, again, let's be clear. Nothing happens without action. But for example, though, if you're like I used to be, like you're really overweight, you're miserable, you're eating your emotions, and you're like, Monday I'm getting up and I'm doing it. If you have this core belief that you're not worthy of physical health, like you're going to sabotage it. You might go a week, you might go a month, you might go days, you might go 6 months. You'll fall right back into the old pattern. Someone who was very close to me, said to me years ago that your physical body is an outward manifestation of what's going on in the inside. Now, at the time, I'm 350 pounds. I took that so personal, but she was right. She was right. And I get it. It took me a long time to figure that out. But there was a story attached to this, the internal chaos, the internal limiting beliefs. And what did I do for most of my life? I numbed it with food. This is where addiction kicks in. We, especially for men, we numb that out. I don't want to feel like this. There's strife in my marriage. I don't want to lean into it. I don't feel fulfilled, or I'm not showing up. I'm not doing enough. So what am I going to do? I'm going to drink. I'm going to eat. I'm going to look at porn, or whatever it happens to be. This is what happens to numb it out. And addiction's rooted in avoidance. But the truth is the root of it is a fucking story. And you can change the story. And when you can accept, you know what, this is me, I'm going to take radical accountability for it, and I'm actually going to choose to rewrite the story. You are the author of your life. All of us are the author of our life, and we get to choose what that book is. What's the book? So rewrite it. Like our life is a book. So if the first, let's say there's 50 chapters in this book. If the first 25 chapters suck, well, let's make the next 25. Let's make the 26th chapter a freaking banger. Be your own hero. Rewrite the story. Just having a different story, the way you see yourself, creating a mantra, creating a declaration of how you see yourself, implants, if you will, the new story. And you've got to embody it. You got to feel this. This is the work that I do with the men. We got to change the story, and there's a way to do that. And then you got to take action, one day at a time. And to pull ourselves out of old patterns, especially if we've been thinking or feeling a certain way for years or decades, let me be really clear. It's not going to change overnight. You will fall back into old patterns. The old stories will come back up. But recognizing them and not judging them and being able to move through it will change and transform your life. That I promise you. I am more confident as a man today than I've ever been in my entire life. And I've experienced a tremendous amount of pain, a tremendous amount of destruction and loss in every pillar of my life. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, but to me, it was an incredible gift, because through the chaos of everything I thought I was, I actually found who I am. And I know who I am. Independent of how any one of you or anyone else sees me, I know who I am. I'm proud of who I am today. And that is not just something I tell myself. That is something I believe, and I'll take it a step further. It's something that I know. It's an embodiment. It's something it's a conviction. And I want to keep getting better. And I'm okay being wrong. It doesn't mean anything. It just means I was wrong. Things I've done in the past. I've done some fucked up things. It's not who I am. It's not even who I was. It's what I did. To be able to distinguish between the two. Everybody messes up. Everybody makes mistakes. Nobody's perfect. Everybody has demons, secret, whatever. It's like, okay, so what do you do with it? Stop running. Stop hiding. The majority of people wear a mask. They pretend. And the most freeing thing is when you can take the mask off. But it's painful when all of a sudden you're sitting there, butt ass naked. Here I am, all of me. The good, the bad, the ugly. We all have it. Contrary to what anyone else says, we all have it. And if anyone tells you otherwise, they're lying. Run. Run. And be able to sit with that. And it's like, yep, I'm not proud of it, but this is who I am today. That's what I did. That's not who I am. And I've chosen a different story, because at the end of the day, the only person that matters what you think is you. So an invitation, as we wrap things up, identify places in your life that aren't working. Pick one. Don't try to do too much. Whatever it happens to be. Business, money, relationally, physically, whatever. As a parent, spirituality, whatever it happens to be. Identify an area. Write out the story. Write out your belief around whatever that happens to be. Right? And then look at it. And you can look at it like, this is exactly what happens. Da, 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 da. It's like, great. So read it. And then whatever emotions come up with it, how about you try to reframe it? Maybe there's a different perspective. Be open, be curious to maybe a different perspective. And then try rewriting the story out differently. And then what's underneath it is really how you see yourself. Try it. Bring some awareness to it. Take your power back. Quit giving it away. There's a lot going on in the world today, a lot. And almost all of it we have zero control over. Zero. I'm fascinated by what's going on in the world today. I've been talking about this a lot. The lies, the utter, I don't even have a word for it. It's just crazy. There are, and I say this all the time, and I want to say this to wrap things up. Like, if there are cracks in your foundation, especially as a man, like, the truth will always come out, and we're seeing it play out in real time. And they don't even hide it anymore. Trump doesn't even hide it anymore. It's wild to me. But the reality is, if you have cracks in your foundation and you have lies and secrets that you're hiding, those little cracks become bigger. And if you do not address it, you can't outrun the truth. And many of those cracks form based upon a particular story or narrative in your life. So yes, you can take accountability, you can speak to things, but at the end of the day, to make sure that crack doesn't come back and it's sealed shut, you've got to rewrite the story, the narrative behind it, the attachment to it. Stop running, stop hiding. I'm telling you, the truth will always come out, and we're seeing it playing out today. And I'm telling you, there's destruction coming. I did a podcast a few weeks ago. I called it The Reckoning. I truly believe, like, economically, there's a lot of shit coming out. There is a storm that is brewing, and it's only going to intensify. And you cannot outrun the truth. We're seeing it in religions. We're seeing it in governments. We're seeing it in the news, in the media, everywhere. We're all seeing it. So my challenge to you is, you recognize that you see it. Now go look in the mirror. And where are you doing the same damn thing? Where are you being a victim? Where are you pointing a finger at everybody else, but the reality is you're doing the same thing that they are? Where are you judging somebody for being, let's say, an alcoholic, but you're a closet porn user that your wife doesn't know about? Really, you're going to judge that guy, but you can't even own your shit? Where's that energy? Where are you out of alignment? What stories are you telling yourself? Because trust me, it's coming out. It's going to come out. So you can be proactive or let the universe, force you to do it. And trust me, the opposite, and I tell you from that experience, is painful. It's not worth it. There is so much freedom in speaking the truth and owning 100% of who you are. Owning it. Even the parts about you that you do not like, that you're not proud of. Like, you can own that and just say, yep, that was me, or that's what I did, but that's not who I am today. Powerful. It is priceless to get into that energy in that space. This is the work that I do with men. And if you find yourself feeling stuck, not being able to work through things, freaking out, but nobody knows, and you're carrying the weight of whatever you're carrying, and you're scared to let it go, like, you need to reach out to me. This is the work that I do. And I'm telling you, the freedom that you're searching for is in what you're avoiding. My tagline, freedom is in the fire. Everything we want's on the other side of what we're avoiding. And what helps us lean into that are the stories that we tell about a particular thing. And more importantly, the stories of how we see ourselves. You can change it. You're the author of your life. Again, I'm so grateful for those that are, that have listened through the rest of this to the end, and for your support of me personally and for Burn Up. And we will see you next time on the Burn Up Podcast.